The weight of water. I hadn't been back to Marlowe in over 17 years. Not since the badge got too heavy and the bottle too easy. But when they told me Dale Mercer was gone, I figured it was time. The highway narrowed into cracked asphalt the deeper I drove into the hills. Kudzu wrapped around rusted fence posts. Mailboxes leaned like they'd given up on hope. But the lake, that's what hit me. Where the water used to be, a mirror for the sky, calm and endless, now there was nothing but a wide, gaping wound. Dry mud. Rotting driftwood. And rising from the muck, like a secret too long buried, the tail end of a sunken car. They'd drained Lake Marlowe for repairs to the old dam. But they didn't expect that car. Or the bones that came with it. My hands tightened on the wheel. The past never stays buried, not out here. It just waits for the water to drop. The church was smaller than I remembered. Pews full of gray heads and weathered faces. Folks who never left, and folks who never forgot. I sat near the back, collar tight, shoulders stiff. They glanced at me, then looked away, like they were afraid I might catch fire in the presence of Scripture. Dale's widow, Marlene, gave a eulogy that cracked halfway through. Said Dale was a good man. Said he served this town till the day he died. But we both knew that wasn't the whole truth. We'd both carried pieces of it, hidden deep and dirty like that lake bed. After the service, Sheriff Boone caught me outside. He was young, clean-cut, with that shiny new confidence that only comes before you've been broken once or twice. "You were close to Dale, weren't you?" he asked, hands in his coat. I nodded. "Real close. Well, maybe you can help me then." He jerked a thumb back toward the lake. "We found a body. Or what's left of one. In a car that's been down there a long time. Plates trace back to 91. That year. That damn year." "You know anything about that?" he asked. And I gave him the same answer I'd been giving myself for nearly 3 decades. "No, Sheriff," I said. "I don't know a thing. But God help me, I did. There's a smell to old secrets when they come up for air, like rusted metal and rain-soaked earth. And that's what hit me as I stood on the edge of what used to be Lake Marlowe. Now it looked more like a graveyard that forgot how to stay buried. The car was a '79 Buick Skylark, half sunk in mud, its rear end crumpled like it had fallen from the sky. Sheriff Boone had it roped off with caution tape and deputies standing around like they were waiting for ghosts. "What do you make of it?" he asked me, handing over a faded photo from the glove box. A girl in her 20s, leaning on the hood of that very same car. Blonde, smiling. Oblivious. Her name was Lila Greer. And once upon a time, she was everything to me. "I remember her," I said, voice rough. Boone nodded, watching me close. "She disappeared the summer of '91. No note, no sign. Parents left town not long after. Always figured she just ran off. She didn't." I stared out across the lake bed, back to where the water used to glisten under moonlight. Back to a night that still woke me up sweating. A night of thunder, headlights, and a choice I couldn't undo. That summer, I was still wearing a badge. Dale was my partner then. We were good at burying things, evidence, rumors, the occasional regret. But Lila's disappearance had never sat right with me. Even after we told her parents, she probably skipped town. Even after we both promised not to talk about what we saw that night. Now she was back, in pieces, under 30 feet of memory. Boone pulled me aside. "Autopsy's preliminary, but there's trauma to the skull. And she didn't drown." I swallowed hard. "You sure you don't know anything, Mr. Maddox?" "Not sure of much these days," I muttered. But deep down, I knew. Lila didn't die by accident. And I hadn't come back just to bury Dale. I came back because the water was low enough now, that the truth had started to breathe. The last time I saw Caroline Harper, it was midnight in a thunderstorm, and she had blood on her hands. Now, it was just after noon, and she was pouring sweet tea behind the counter at Grady's diner, like nothing had ever happened. But when our eyes met, the years peeled away like wet paint. She froze. Just for a second. "Jack," she said, voice low. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Figured the same," I replied, sliding onto a stool. "You're still in Marlowe." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Some of us never left." The waitress took my order and vanished. We sat in silence, the kind that buzzes with everything you can't say in public. Then she leaned in, whispering. "They found her, didn't they?" I didn't ask how she knew. She always knew. Back then, she was the preacher's daughter, golden hair, clean hands, and a temper like dry lightning. She and Lila were close once. Until the summer tore everything apart. "Her body's out of the lake," I said. "Sheriff thinks it's a cold case come back to life." Caroline glanced around. "Does he know?" "Not yet." She looked away, jaw tight. "You should have left it buried, Jack." "She didn't bury herself." Caroline took off her apron, laid it on the counter, and motioned for me to follow. Out back, in the alley where the air smelled like grease and hot pavement, she lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "I told you to forget that night," she said. "You promised." "I was 21 and scared out of my damn mind," I snapped. "I didn't promise because it was right. I promised because Dale said we had to." She winced at the name. "Dale's dead." "Yeah, well. Lila ain't." We stood there, shadows cast long by the afternoon sun. Two people who shared a secret so deep it warped everything after. Love, trust, even the idea of right and wrong. "We made a pact," she said. "You, me, and Dale. We never talk about what happened. Ever. That pact kept the truth under 30 feet of water," I said. "Now she's up on dry land, Caroline. And she's got a story to tell." Her eyes narrowed, voice just above a whisper. "If you open this door, Jack, you better be ready for what walks through it." The first time I saw him, I didn't know he was mine. He was standing in front of the sheriff's office with a camera slung over one shoulder and a notebook in the other hand. Tall, lean, sharp-eyed, looked like someone who'd seen just enough of the world to know it could lie to him. His press badge read Reed Maddox. Maddox. That name hit harder than a fist. I crossed the street, boots scraping pavement, heart thudding like it had something to prove. He looked up as I approached, that same furrow between his brows I used to see in the mirror. Damn near knocked the breath out of me. "You're Jack Maddox?" he asked. I nodded. "And you must be the reporter stirring up all the old bones." He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Funny. Usually it's the sheriff that calls me that." "You work for the Marlowe Gazette?" "Freelance. Mostly do regional crime features. Cold cases." He paused. "Lila Greer, for instance." I froze. "You knew her?" he asked, already scribbling in that damn notebook. "Everyone did back then." "Everyone," he repeated. "But not everyone got their car pulled out of the lake with her bones in the trunk." I should have walked away. I should have said I didn't have time. But I didn't. I just stood there, the weight of everything unspoken pressing down like the summer heat. He tilted his head. "You were sheriff once, right? Long time ago. Were you involved in the original missing persons case?" Now that was a question full of teeth. "I was, close to the investigation," I said carefully. "But it went cold." He narrowed his eyes. "I've got a stack of interviews to do, but something tells me the real story isn't in the files." He turned to go, then paused. "Maddox. That's a name with some weight around here." You ever know a woman named Elise? My stomach dropped. Elise. Her name hit like a freight train through memory. She passed a few years back, he said. My mother. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. He didn't know. Not yet. And now, the son I never claimed was digging through the lies I helped bury. Some folks think the past is dead and buried. But out here in Marlowe, the soil's thin, and nothing stays down forever. The next morning, I woke to a knock on the motel door. Sheriff Boone, again. Only this time, his face was tight, serious, and he wasn't alone. 2 deputies flanked him, and one had a file tucked under his arm. We're reopening the Greer case, Boone said flatly. I thought you should know. I stepped outside, squinting against the sun. That a courtesy or a warning? He didn't smile. Depends. The file they had was thin, but inside was a new piece of the puzzle, a faded photograph from the summer of '91. 3 kids leaning against the same Buick they pulled out of the lake. Lila on the left. Dale in the middle. And me on the right. We found this in her old apartment storage unit, Boone said. One of the volunteers cleaning out her parents' house turned it in. I stared at it, my throat dry. I hadn't seen that photo in decades. Didn't even know it existed. Funny thing, Boone continued, the storage unit was paid up until 3 months ago. Someone kept the payments going long after the family left town. I looked away. I'd been the one sending cash, anonymous money orders every year like some guilty guardian angel. I figured it was the least I could do. We're also running tests on the blood inside the car, he added. Lila didn't die instantly. There's evidence she hit the windshield. Hard. I felt the weight of those words. Evidence. Blood. My name in that photo. You and Dale were the responding officers on her missing persons report, Boone said. And Caroline Harper gave a statement back then, but it's vague. Incomplete. Because she was protecting someone, I muttered. Boone stepped closer. Jack, if you know something, now's the time. Before this thing blows wide open. I held the photo tight. My hand was shaking. Let me ask you something, I said. You ever protect someone? Not because it was legal. Not because it was right. But because you couldn't stand to see them ruined? Boone stared at me, jaw tight. That's not my job. I nodded. Yeah. That's the difference between us. But I knew the clock was ticking. The dig wasn't just physical anymore. The truth was coming up, bone by bone, and it was about to rip through everything I'd tried to keep standing. That night, I drove out to the old Greer property. The house was gone, burned down 10 years ago in a lightning strike, they said, but the porch steps were still there, cracked and overgrown. I sat on them like I had 100 nights before, back when we were just kids with too many dreams and no idea what they'd cost. Lila's ghost hung in the air, silent, waiting. I pulled out the photo Boone had shown me, the one with me, Dale, and her smiling like nothing could touch us. But something had. Something fast, violent, and final. I remember the sound of that impact like it was yesterday. Tires screaming. Metal crunching. Then the silence. Dale was the first to move, always was. We ran to the car, saw the windshield spiderwebbed with blood, saw Lila slumped behind the wheel, not moving. And Caroline, God help her, was in the passenger seat, screaming. The truth is, Lila wasn't the one driving that night. Caroline was. She took the keys after a fight at the lake party. Lila had been drinking too much, arguing with Dale, something about secrets, about leaving town. Caroline tried to calm her down, offered to drive. The tree came out of nowhere. The road was slick. And in a blink, everything shattered. Dale pulled Caroline from the wreck. I got the passenger door open, but Lila was already gone. Dead weight, no pulse. We made the call that night. Not to save ourselves, but to save Caroline. She was barely 18, terrified. Her life would have ended before it began. So Dale, the good cop, the hometown hero, took control. We rolled the car into the lake, weighed it down, and we swore, on our lives, we'd never speak of it again. And now here I was, sitting on her porch steps, holding a secret that was 30 years too heavy. My son, Reed, was digging for the truth. The town was catching wind. And Caroline? She was still carrying that guilt like it was stitched into her bones. I had a choice: let the investigation swallow the truth, or drag it into the light myself. Either way, someone would burn. And maybe this time, it ought to be me. The church was empty when I walked in, except for Caroline sitting in the front pew, hands folded like she still believed someone upstairs might listen. She didn't turn around when I stepped inside. Just spoke, soft and tired. "You're gonna tell him, aren't you?" I sat beside her. The air smelled like old wood and dried flowers. The kind of place where you expect to hear forgiveness, but only find echoes. "I have to," I said. She nodded slowly. "I kept it buried for so long I started to wonder if it ever really happened. But it did. Every second of it. You were just a kid. So were you." She finally looked at me, eyes rimmed red but clear. "What happens when you tell the truth, Jack? You think it makes anything better?" "No," I said. "But maybe it stops it from getting worse." Later that afternoon, I called Sheriff Boone and told him I needed 15 minutes of his time, with his recorder on. I met him at his office, walked in with a mind full of ghosts and a story that had rotted for 3 decades. I laid it all out. The accident. The panic. The lie. The way we buried the truth with that car. And then I gave him something else, a letter Dale had written a year before he died. One he'd mailed to me, unopened until last night. In it, he wrote about how the secret had eaten him alive. How he wished he could go back and face it. How he hoped one of us would. Boone didn't say much. Just listened. Wrote a few things down. "You're confessing to obstruction, tampering with evidence, and withholding information in a possible homicide," he said quietly. "I know," I answered. He stared at me, jaw clenched. "And you're okay with that?" "No," I said. "But I'm not gonna hide behind the badge I used to wear. Not anymore." That night, I sat in my motel room, door cracked open, waiting for whatever came next: handcuffs, headlines, maybe even peace. And then there was a knock. I opened the door and there he was, Reed. Holding the letter I'd left for him. "I read it," he said. "All of it." His eyes were full of something I hadn't seen before. Understanding. They didn't haul me out in cuffs. Boone made a statement to the press: former lawman comes forward in a decades-old case. The DA's office issued a formal investigation, but given the statute of limitations on the charges I confessed to, and the lack of evidence pointing to murder, they decided not to pursue prosecution. Turns out, even the law has limits on how long it can chase ghosts. Still, the town had its say. Some folks crossed the street when they saw me. Others muttered behind my back at the diner. A few just stared, like they couldn't quite figure out if I was the villain or just another fool with a heavy conscience. But not everyone turned away. Caroline stepped up first, quietly at first, then publicly. She gave her statement. Told the truth, same as me. It cracked something open in this town. The illusion of perfection. The myth of clean lines and clear heroes. It made space for honesty. And sometimes, that's enough. Reed, well, he kept digging. But not out of suspicion anymore. Out of respect. He told the story for the paper. Published it raw, names, facts, pain and all. Called it the water below. Said people deserved to know what happened. He didn't paint me as a hero. Thank God. He painted me as what I was, a man who made a bad choice, then another, and finally, a better one. We started having breakfast together every Sunday. He asks questions sometimes, not just about the case, but about Elise. About how I loved her, why I stayed away, and why I never came back to find him. And I answer. Every time. Because lies got us here. But the truth, even when it hurts, is what finally let me breathe. They never refilled the lake. Some say it was budget issues. Others say the town didn't want to drown another secret. But I like to think it's something else, like maybe Marlowe needed to see what was underneath. Needed to stare at the dried-out truth and find a way forward. These days, I help rebuild boats out near the old dock. Not for the water, but for the hands that still remember how to make something float, even when it's taken on water. The past didn't kill me. It just taught me how to carry the weight, and finally, how to let some of it go.